You wish that our places had been exchanged, that I had died instead of Lenny.
Yes. I wish that.
Okay, so another mind-blowing episode of The Boys has just dropped, and as always, we're here to break down the entire entry from start to finish. I just want to get straight into it, but if you haven't had a chance to check out the latest episode yet, then I highly recommend that you check out now, as there's going to be spoilers here for both the show and comics. Make sure you smash the thumbs up button if you've been enjoying the coverage so far, and please subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our breakdown of the finale. With all that out of the way, as always, this is the Heavy Spoilers Show. I'm your host Paul, now let's get into the video. Okay, so episode 7 opens in the room of a diehard Stormfront fan known in the show as a storm chaser. The poster of her that's adorned above his bed is actually extremely similar to one of the most popular images of the show's comic book counterpart, and after learning of her true history last week, it's nice that we start to see how these line up. There's also an image of a Soldier Boy poster, and though we don't actually catch the full face of the character just yet, a statue of him does appear later in the episode. Now throughout this intro, we witness how the constant piling on of one message can heavily influence people, and it's clearly a comment on extremists being swayed by either political figures or celebrities. This character, played by Charlie Kuntz, is surrounded by the constant idea that immigrants are dangerous due to the super terrorist threat. After witnessing a headlight reflection in a shopkeeper's eyes, he slowly becomes paranoid and then kills him. Immigration is often a hot talking point in elections, and the media often portray this demographic in a negative light, similar to what we see in the show. We can clearly see how someone can be caught up in all of this, and we watch as Charlie ends up pointing the finger at someone he shouldn't because of the lies he's been told. What's interesting is, because of what Stormfront has been publicly saying, Charlie likely believes that he's a hero, much like she is, when in fact he's just a murderer. And in the episode, the villain even talks down this act while still promoting her agenda. Other notable elements in this scene are the appearance of Dan Duran, who provides the voiceover on the radio. Duran has appeared as a news anchor in numerous things from Dawn of the Dead to X-Men and more. Dan is actually listed as a VNN news correspondent, which likely stands for Vault News Network, cementing how far the propaganda from the higher ups is fed to society. Cut to Victoria Newman and Lamplighter practicing his testimony for the Congress hearing at the end of the episode. We get far more of a focus on Newman in this entry, and the character is of course based on AOC, a real-world New York Congress representative. Last time we saw her, Homelander remarked on her dancing video which went viral, and this is similar to the real-world figure who picked up a lot of publicity for doing the same thing. Newman is actually based on the comic book character Victor Newman, aka Vic the Veep, a complete idiot in the source material who actually ends up as the President of the United States, but whether they go that route or not remains to be seen. Now Vic says that Lamplighter's testimony won't be enough, and thus Billy heads out to get someone even better, bumping into his father along the way.
That was fun.
Now I think thematically that this episode is very much about fathers and the relationships that they have with their children. We see that Billy's dad used to brutally beat both him and his brother, which led to the latter ending his own life. In his mind, his father carried these beatings out as a kindness that would better prepare the two for the real world, but we see how that turned out. Mirroring this, Homelander pulls back the curtain on the quote-unquote real world for Ryan and shows him that he's been living a lie. Like Butcher's dad, he believes that this is a kindness. However, he's likely just opened the door for the corporation to get its claws into him, which will mean he's brought up as a commodity instead of the child that Becca was treating him as. Lamplighter also discusses how he burnt down his home when he was a child, and instead of scolding him for it, his dad celebrated that his son was a soup. This would of course send him off on the path that would eventually lead to him setting himself alight in front of the Seven statue. Reflecting this, Huey says that after his mother left, his father sunk into a deep depression, and he thought that this would inspire him to do something great, even though it hasn't. Well, I think it has, but he doesn't seem it like that way. Look, anyway, Frenchie mentions his father losing his mind, which pushed him towards his mother, and Mallory discusses with Mother's Milk how he likely won't be able to avenge his father's death and should instead try and build a relationship with his daughters, which ultimately he doesn't do. At least for now anyway. Now on top of this, we also see a betrayal by Vogelbaum, who in many ways was a surrogate father to Homelander. He states he wanted to make him the strongest man in the world, but that Homelander didn't even want to fill that role. This is of course similar to Billy's childhood, who too was toughened up by his dad, and in the end I really appreciate how they're kind of drawing parallels between the characters. In the end, Vogelbaum somewhat betrays his son and decides to testify at Congress in order to unveil all the dirty secrets that the corporation has. This ultimately doesn't work out for him, but throughout the entry we have this idea of the sons inheriting the sins of their father. It's not just dads that are bad either, and we see how useless Annie's mother is too when she stupidly informs Vought beforehand that they plan to take a break from the corporation. Since she removed her tracking device last week, they've been looking for her, and Black Noir arrives and easily takes her down. She's pretty much being used as a patsy right now, and I have a theory that Stormfront was looking to take her off the board early because she's pretty much the polar opposite to her power-wise. Annie's abilities involve draining the electricity from an object to power her, and with Stormfront's abilities being based around this, it's likely that she would pretty cleanly whip her arse in a fight. Speaking of arses, there's some hilarious hub moments throughout the episode, and we sit with Huey and Lamplighter as they watch some, let's call them parodies. Now, there's several key appearances by the Seven in these. However, the most notable one I think is the film featuring a riff on Jack from Jupiter. In the comics, Jack was an original member of the Seven that was basically Martian Manhunter for the group. I actually have a feeling that he will be popping up down the line, but to see him here is quite hilarious. They go through the collection, and there's also a nod to Starlight holding A-Train, which is a reference to the comics in which she was forced to blow him, Homelander and Black Noir in order to be allowed into the Seven. I'm telling you, them comics are very, very dark. There's also one in which Homelander bangs someone's wife, which don't let Billy see that, please. In addition to this, Huey also wears a Journey t-shirt from their Japan Escape tour in 1981, and don't stop believing that I won't be buying this on Amazon right now. Not really an Easter egg, but I just like that shirt. Now Annie is kept in a cell block that looks similar to the prison from the movie Cube. These blocks were completely secure, and she's unable to escape from it until Lamplighter and Huey mount a rescue mission to save her. Across town, Homelander and Stormfront hold a rally, and I love how Homelander says, "Who's the real heroes? Huh? You are!" Every time he says that, it just cracks me up. They send thoughts and prayers to the convenience store owner at the start of the episode, who we learn is actually called Kuldeep Singh. Now this was on the name badge, but it is possible that the character's name has also been chosen for a specific reason. Kuldeep Singh Singhal was a member of a political party in India, and he was recently convicted of murder, rape and criminal conspiracy. Might be a reach, but Stormfront announcing it like this would make stupid YouTubers Google the name and then see the connection so that they would make logic leaps about what her agenda really is. Wake up people, I'm sending thoughts and prayers though. Now I think this rally is very much laced with Trump-esque dialogue, and whatever your political standing is, there are a lot of similarities here. The pair discuss how they're the most persecuted people on the planet, which is something that is often used to criticize negative media publications surrounding him. They also mention how the country used to be better, which could be riffing on Make America Great Again. I'm trying to avoid politics right now as it's all just kind of a touchy subject, but let me know whether you agree or disagree on if that's the message that the writers were trying to convey. Now we discover that Stormfront is keeping Annie alive, and Homelander keeps saying that this is a mistake. Personally, I think that Stormfront is doing this so that the ending scene could potentially be pinned on her, as I really can't think of any other reason to have her around. Stormfront does state that a common enemy rallies the base, and thus they may have kept her confined to blame her for the attack. Stormfront also looks at a baby and gets very broody, saying that her daughter looked exactly the same. Now last week we did theorize that she was going to try and have a kid with Homelander, but I think that the show is just going to skip over this and go a much shorter route and just have her become a somewhat adoptive mother to Ryan. She's clearly teasing wanting a child, and due to her connections in Vought, was likely well aware that Homelander had one. When they arrive, she tells Ryan that he's very, very special because he's the first natural born superhero, and as we know from her work last week, she's trying to find a way to refine Compound B to mass produce soups. It may even be possible that the key to this lies in Ryan's blood, and getting a hold of him is actually her endgame. We know that V being used on adults is very hit and miss, but perhaps something within his DNA is going to unlock the secrets of this, and that Ryan has been basically her plan this whole time. Homelander even agrees at one point that keeping him sheltered and raising him away from the world is the right thing to do, but Stormfront likely sinks her claws in, and she is the reason why he alters the deal later in the entry. Elsewhere, Maeve's relationship falls apart, with the revelation last week making it so that Elena can't live with her anymore. I loved how she ended up sleeping with a guy, and Ashley was horrified because she'd been marketing her as a lesbian, even though from the start she said that she was bisexual. Corporations only really care about inclusivity when they can market it, and I think Maeve is a prime example of that. Her being with a man just complicates things, and thus Ashley is furious. I really think that Maeve is living on borrowed time right now, and after what she does later in the episode, it seems like she's not going to be in the 7 much longer. I guess relationships can be tough, but it isn't all doom and gloom, and Frenchie and Kimiko have a real heart-to-heart. Deep also introduces his wife to A-Train, and it all seems like it's gonna be fine until Alistair Adorned steps in. Now Adorned mentions that he has a meeting with Edgar to get the pair back into the 7, and it's starting to seem like there's some big master plan to keep certain people off the board for specific moments. We see that Shockwave, aka A-Train's replacement, gets killed at the end of the episode, and this is likely carried out by Cindy, who as we know has been working for Stormfront from time to time. So with him out the way, it does seem like A-Train will be back in the 7 soon, but I have to wonder whether this was all planned out and that's how Alistair was able to get him back in so quickly. Adorned also says that no one from the church is to associate with Eagle the Archer. I thought it was hilarious how the Deep said that he was the most kind and caring person ever until Adorned said he was toxic, and he was just like, yep, now you mention it, he was a bit toxic. Now Eagle saw the failure in the program, and the Scientology-esque organization booted him out because he wouldn't cut off contact with his mother. I guess the Fresca brainwashing didn't work, and they then leaked personal information about him. Obviously, this kinda hints at what the church will do to the Deep and A-Train if they decide to leave, and it's gonna be interesting to see what happens when they say no. Now when Huey and Lamplighter get to Vought Tower, the latter does something completely left field that I wasn't expecting at all. I think this is actually a reference to the Burning Monk, a real life figure that set himself on fire in protest to the persecution of Buddhists. My jaw was on the floor when this happened, and it actually does leave the door open for the show to line up with the comics. When we first meet Lamplighter in the source material, the character is in a zombie-like state, having died at the hands of Colonel Mallory. The compound V in his system actually boots up his brain, and thus he comes back to life, but he's a complete mess. The deaths, though different, could even lead to him coming back to life, and I think it's going to be interesting to see if he returns. To be fair, he was pretty armless. Hey, you having that? Now it's at this time that Black Noir busts Annie up, and this reminded me a lot of the Terminator or Mr. X from Resident Evil. Maeve actually comes in and saves her, and the show further takes a dump on Armin Joy by having her stuff one in his mouth to set off his nut allergy. This is a reference to episode 4, when it was mentioned as being serial killer John Wayne Gacy's favourite chocolate bar. Huey said that beside him, Annie was the only person who liked them. I do like how the show is kind of tied together that her favourite thing is also Black Noir's weakness. Now, we do see under his mask for a split second as Maeve pulls it up. Now from this, we can confirm that that is indeed Nathan Mitchell under his mask, but he also has a zombie-like texture to his skin. To me, this signifies that the show is indeed moving away from the source material and going in its own direction with the character. Now if you don't want the comics or potentially show ruined, then skip forward 30 seconds as we will be spoiling some certain things. If you're still here, then thanks for sticking around, and in the comics it's revealed that Noir is actually a clone of Homelander that's a contingency plan in case he goes rogue. The fact that this is an African American actor whose face we actually see cements that they are indeed moving away from this, and all the theories that he is in fact a clone of Edgar are starting to become more and more likely. Edgar is of course not afraid of Homelander, and he has an almost master-like hold over Noir, so it does make sense that the one person he would be able to trust would in fact be himself. Let me know your best theories below on this, but for the moment, I think it is safe to say that they're now moving completely away from the comics. What is in line with the comics though is that Maeve stays behind, and it will be interesting to see if she finally has a showdown with Homelander like she does in the source material. She really was brave Maeve in the end. Now Huey grabs Lamplighter's hand, saves Annie's mother, and reunites with her to escape the building. Elsewhere, Homelander and Stormfront take Ryan, and Billy meets with his mother in the same cafe that Annie did hers. I love this symmetry in these two moments, and we kind of see how two mothers try to do the right thing, but instead ended up doing the wrong one. I guess all parents in the boys universe suck, but at least the two get this moment together before we head into the final mind-blowing scene. Crap, I did that joke already, didn't I? Now, I got a lot of Batman v Superman vibes from this finale, with it being a testimonial hearing that pretty much gets shut down. But what exactly is going on? Well, as mentioned earlier, I do think that Cindy is behind this, and that she has finally arrived to take revenge. We did see her hitchhiking last week, and exploding heads is indeed part of her power set. But who's controlling her, and is it actually Vought? Well, as mentioned earlier, they were rearing the Deep and A-Train to return. This was a public hearing that would make their company seem bad, and thus it does make sense that they would want to sabotage it. Their heroes such as Stormfront and Homelander are still safe by the end of it, and it does make sense that Stormfront would build a failsafe into Cindy so that she could control her. Cindy could have exploded Stormfront's head at any time when she set her loose on Raina, so I do believe that she does hold some kind of power over her. This attack will of course further her agenda about the super terrorist threat, and doing it in such a public manner makes me believe that she's actually the one behind it all. Obviously, we won't know until next Friday, which is a shame, but it does look like Billy is furious that another chance that he had to take down Vought has been cast to the side. It is, however, the end of the season next week, so it would be amazing if they headed out to the hearing to try and take them down during this, but I guess we're just gonna have to see. There's a lot of potential avenues, but that closes out the episode, and as always, I'd love to hear your thoughts on it, so comment below and let me know. If you enjoyed this video, then please drop a thumbs up, and make sure you check out our other breakdowns on the series, which are going to be linked at the end. If you want to support the channel and get to see content early, then please consider clicking the join button below. You can also come chat to us on the Discord server, linked in the description, or heavy spoilers on Twitter. Thanks for making it until the end of the video. You've been the best, I've been Paul, and I'll see you next time. Take care, peace.